Did you ever watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
You know what? There was a period of about 10 years where I didn't, because I was married at 18, had a 1-year-old child, and I was a full-time university student with a full-time job. And so we didn't even have a TV for like a decade. And I think it was probably, there's a whole bunch of series where people say, oh yeah, like, and oh, Saved by the Bell. It's like, I
I
know,
love Saved by the
right.
Bell.
It's like, so I just missed a whole decade of essentially television culture in the early 80s and even late 80s. I just lost basically the 80s. I lost all of it. So I was like, oh, okay. So
Reason I ask is there's this episode where Will's in college at this point, and I forget the class, so I might mess up some of the details, but it's like a theory type class, and the first like assignment is stupid hard. And
yeah,
then Will goes in.
on day one.
Yes. And so
Yeah,
then Will comes in and he's like, yep, I'm going to drop the class. And then it ends up being that the class ends up being super easy. Like as soon as they submit the assignment, it's like to weed out anyone who's like not serious.
right.
And I always wondered, is there any like legitimacy to that?
I love it. The all of the CEOs I work with, their number one job, and they know it, but they don't think of it this way, is to create a compelling commercial mission. And by compelling, it should be polarizing. So take SpaceX. SpaceX, if you can look it up online, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially their commercial mission is to enable human life on other planets. Got it. So now you're a Purdue or a Caltech aeronautical engineering graduate looking for your first job. You either say, what if I screw up on helping people breathe? I don't know that I'm up for that. It's supposed to repel all the wussies. And then for the people that say, are you kidding me? This sounds like a million-piece Lego set that I get to play with for the next 30 years. You said it should be either or, and there's no middle. But the biggest thing, you see it on dating apps as well. The first thing you want to do in a dating app is repel the 90% of candidates who you never want to talk to, or so tell them the truth. tell them your weird habits, because that'll repel. It's a brilliant strategy because it saves you so much darn time. And so
I had no intention of going down the relationship conversation today, but it's so funny because, I married my high school sweetheart and people will always like talk about like advice and dating, and like my friends who are kind of going through it right now, who aren't married or aren't engaged. And I always say, if you were just like your absolute self, like not like a jerk or whatever, but like your weird habits, you are either going to save yourself a bunch of time or you're going to find the person who loves you for your unique weird habits. So it's like,
or sees them as just like them. They may say, oh yeah, I'm quirky and weird too. You go, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think we make things more complicated than they need to be.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my wife, we met online. It's a second marriage for both of us, and her profile, the entire narrative was, I'm looking for someone that shares my values. That was it. Now she's Indian. She's very private, and that's partly cultural, and she's also very attractive. And so mine it wasn't War and Peace, but it was essentially a manual on how to be interested or not interested in me. And one of the things I put in there is I said, I have a life code, a cheat code, and I listed rule 1, rule 2, rule 3. It's a system. But the second one was, and I hold myself to this standard. I don't live up to it all the time, but this is what I hold myself. I honor every individual as a precious child of God. Now, that doesn't say that I'm a Bible thumper. But what I'd have women that would say, I'd love to go out with you. And then they'd actually read the profile right before we're supposed to meet for coffee. And they'd send me a text and say, I don't think I can go out with you because you're a Bible thumper. I was like, what? No, I didn't say I'm a Bible thumper. I don't say I'm a fundamentalist right-wing Christian. I said, essentially, if God finds you valuable, who am I not to? That's what it's saying. And that's a high standard, but that's the way I should treat people at my best. So that's what I hold myself to. And that's part of a whole system, but that's the middle rule or command for myself. It's from myself to myself. So what I'm telling them is, if you're going to be around me, this is the way I want to conduct myself. I thought that would be a strength. It was amazing how polarizing that was. I would get 1 out of 3. I only went on about a dozen first dates, and then I met my wife, but like 4 or 5 of them right before you're supposed to go out. Something this was this text saying, and every one of them, I went back and read their profile. Everyone said, for religion, spiritual, not religious. And it's like, oh, okay, so that means you what? Listen, you watch Oprah and you post Deepak Chopra quotes online. Oh, okay, good. That's good. Yeah, we probably wouldn't have gotten along. But it is funny because that was my purpose. I looked at it as an efficiency exercise. Is I'm going to date somebody. I want to get a reasonable chance that we enjoy each other's company. And I went on dates and they were nice people, not the right person, and it was like cool. But I met my wife and it was super obvious, and it was like, okay, good. That was about the 12th person. I was on the site for about 3 months. That was it, and we were done. And we've been married for 8 years. But yeah, people don't get it. They do it like binge watching TV. If I can stay on the app, it's a game. And I understand game theory, so I was like, oh, I get it. They don't ever let you off. They keep throwing things back at you and say, here's your perfect matches and all that other stuff. It's like, that's not the game I want to play. That wasn't the game I want to play. So yeah, repulsion is actually a really good strategy. You look at, I mean, you have clients too. You want to repel all the people that are going to waste your time or want stuff from you that you know, and they will never pay for it. You go, no. That's not what my business is about. So please go away. You want to repel them. You don't want to be mean to them. You want to repel them.
That's the number one thing that I've started to actually try and implement is how do I get less leads, excuse me, but more qualified, like people who are absolutely about this and who are going to come in and commit 100%, because there's nothing I dislike more than getting an athlete or people who are just not committed and are just there, because it's like you said, it's a waste of my time and theirs as well.
Well, that's the thing is, it's a colossal waste of their time too. So you're actually doing both of you a service, and people say, "Wow, I reached out to this guy. He wouldn't even return my thing." And you look at him and go, "Not a candidate. just not a candidate." So, yeah, it's just an efficiency thing. So,
do you use that practice in your own business building?
Oh yeah. My avatar is very specific, and the first time people reach out, I let them know, here's who I work brilliantly with, and they get 100x ROI. And here's who I don't work with because I'm of no value to them. I make it about me, that I suck at this. So and I know exactly who that person is, professionally. So that's it. It helps me to weed people out, because, and I don't describe the people that are a bad fit in bad terms. I just say, here's what it normally looks like when the investment wouldn't be worth it to you. You look like this. And that's still an attractive description. It's just not me. Like solopreneurs, I can't help them because they're not in a scale game. They're in a lifestyle game. It's a great, how do I build a practice by myself to take care of myself and my family? That's a great game. I'm just not in that. I'm not in that business. So I tell people, and they say, well, I'm a CEO. And he's like, yeah, but you're a CEO of yourself and 2 offshore VAs.
It's 2 totally different things.
Yeah, and a cat. There's nothing to scale here. There's no, it's, yeah. So I can't help you. and you'd never want to pay. You'd never even want to know what my fees are, because you'd be floored by it. So why waste both of our time?
What are some of those unteachable, scalable traits that people have?
It's one of my favorite questions, because I work with companies on scale. I'll give you two to consider. We can play with them. My favorite is charisma. Have you ever seen somebody who's trying to learn charisma or be charismatic? They look really clunky, like somebody who's trying to be humorous. And what they do is they they inappropriately insert a funny story at a social event. They say, "Oh, a funny thing happened to me," and it's all rehearsed. And they're trying to, and you go, "That's trying to be funny when you're really not funny." And charisma is the same way. We're incredibly magnetically attracted to charismatic people. Well, you tell me, what can a charismatic CEO do to help a company scale that a non-charismatic or less charismatic CEO could do? Name some of the things they can do better.
Yeah, I think of charisma. It's just people you're naturally drawn to in their message, and you're kind of willing to rally behind them.
But you tell me whether charisma helps with these. Fundraising?
Absolutely.
Recruiting?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Selling, like promoting?
Absolutely.
Public speaking? I mean, you got a charismatic CEO versus a non-charismatic CEO. It's a scaling mechanism. Now take another one. It's another one of my favorites, but very underrated, is dissension. People go, dissension and scaling? First of all, well, let's go back to charisma for a second. Charisma, in my book, is unteachable. If you try to teach it or learn it, you generally just look foolish. And you see this in little kids. You're a dad. Your daughter's young.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. She'll be selling raffle tickets for Little League or Girl Scout cookies or something, and you watch the kids that come to your door. You've had them come to your door, and an 8-year-old kid selling Girl Scout cookies, you kind of have to buy it because it's part of the community. But you watch the ones that are good at it, and you go, "Wow, that kid's going to make it." Where did that come from? They didn't learn it. That you go, they got it, and they'll always have that, and it'll scale in their life. Well, then take something like dissension. Dissension. Most people don't dissent because it's uncomfortable. But you and I are in the product development team, and I say we're going to make this thing for left-handers only, and I'm adamant about it. And in your head, the guy's full of it. That's only 10% of the market. Why would we exclude all the right-handers? Why wouldn't we make it either for both or just for right-handers and go, it's way more efficient? But you're afraid to say it because it's uncomfortable, and maybe I'm your boss. So people just say nothing. Well, you end up going down a bad path because there's not the structure or the culture in place for you to be honored as a dissenter. So that's learned. That's something you can teach. And some of my best companies, the way I teach it is you simply, the leader of the conversation, not the leader of the team, but the leader of the conversation, their job, once you've sketched something out and you're deciding between A and B, what you tell them is, talk me out of this. Now you're a hero for stepping up and saying, well, here's my concern. Lefties are only 10% of the market. We're going to leave a ton of revenue on the table. Either we should go for righties because that's 90% of the market, or we should do it for both and get the whole market. But really, from an efficiency standpoint, maybe we ought to just focus on 90% of the market and then introduce it for lefties 6 months from now if it's a hit. That's really helpful that you dissent when I say, I'm a lefty, we're going for the lefty market. And it's actually kind of insane, but there's not the platform for you to be able to do it. You have to have some courage to do that. You can teach dissension. It also goes really well with curiosity. So those are teachable scaling talents versus charisma, which you say you have to look for it and try to hire it. and you'll know it when you spot it, but there's not very many people in society. As a percentage of 100, there's not very many people that have natural charisma. Wouldn't it be great if you had a half dozen people, probably is all you need in your organization, that are naturally charismatic? You get an incredible advantage talent-wise. That's a talent. That's not a skill. And that people talk about the two like they're the same. Charisma is a talent, and I would say unteachable. There's a whole bunch of them, and I'm writing my fourth book on that subject, because there are some that are teachable and super good at scaling, and there are some that are unteachable. One you have to hire in, and the other one you can teach your whole organization, and so you can scale faster. The whole idea is to just increase the probability and pace of scale.
Looking at charisma from a bigger point of view, the problem that I can see with charisma sometime, though, is because you're charismatic, you're able to hide other faults, and you're able to put yourself or make yourself appear to be more qualified than you actually are. So when does style and substance, how do you find that equilibrium with charisma?
What a great question. Because it's the dark side of charisma, is you can get away with stuff. Because let's say you can fundraise. Okay, that's great. You can fundraise way better than I can. You can either fundraise more, faster, or both. Is that the optimal amount for, because you're going to give up a share of your company when you do that. You say, okay, well, Colin's able, wow, you got us a seed round of 22 million. And I suck at fundraising, so it's going to take me 100 presentations when it's going to take you 20. So first of all, you save all that time and energy. That's a plus. But 22 million, you'd have to give up more of the company. Could I do it because I'm more pragmatic? Let's say I'm pragmatic, not charismatic. Oh, I can figure out how to only take 14 million and give away a third less of the company. So it's a dark side, because more charisma may not be helpful, because the size of the funding that you can do, because you're really good at it, in the long run comes out of somebody's pocket. You're a founder. Some of it's going to come out of your pocket. If we really do have a big hit, that cost you millions of dollars, because you really didn't need 22 million up front. You could have gotten away with something significantly less. It's always a trade-off, and every what we call genius talent has a dark side. Because here's the simple way to think about it. Any attribute in excess becomes a detriment. So let's say you're incredibly generous. Like, you're just generous of time and spirit, and when Girl Scouts come to your door, you buy more than you probably should, just because you're a decent human being. The problem with an excess of generosity is you become the target for everyone. They say, well, go to Colin. You need a sponsor for the annual golf tournament? He always, and you go, why am I sponsoring everything in the community? And it's because you can't not, almost. And it becomes a detriment. You think an excess, there's it's like candy. Candy's kind of cool until you eat an excess and you go, now I got a stomach ache and diabetes. That's not so good. Yeah. A little bit, you go, oh, that's cool. The right amount, whatever that is. But excess, not good.
Now, I frequently say sometimes our greatest strengths are also our greatest weaknesses. Like, for me as an athlete, I was incredibly intense, like just competed really, really hard. Also got me into problems with officiating a lot.
Right.
Particularly basketball. Obviously, I think Draymond Green is a good example of that passion and intensity that's super beneficial.
Yep.
Sometimes it just crosses that line a little bit. It's finding how to maximize that unique strength or that unique talent. And have you found anything that helps people really dive into their unique strengths like charisma and be able to find that equilibrium where they don't dip into the dark side of it?
Yeah. So I've worked with, the concept is, we actually have a trademark. It's called Genius Talent. The theory we have is that every individual has a genius level talent, and it's embedded in your DNA, which, if you do the We don't try to prove that, but if you do the logic of that, that means you're one in the history of humanity, not one on 8 billion, which is currently on the planet. You say, no, this is everyone that's ever lived, because DNA, except for identical twins, you'd be one in 100 billion. There's been about 100 billion people that have roamed the earth. And you think it's that specific. The trick is find it. And when you find it, we have a process to do that. Then you start separating what you really do first. People say, oh yeah, and then you dive into it. You say, no, first thing you do is find everything that's kryptonite for that, or everything that you shouldn't be doing that's a colossal waste of time. And your list will look different than mine, but your colossal failure projects, for me, home repairs. Like I was raised by an engineer. We built house, I roofed, I did all that stuff. I was okay at it. When I do home repair projects around my house, I'm three trips to Home Depot. There's a hole in the wall because I screwed something up, and I bought the wrong tool. And now I gotta, gosh darn it, now what am I gonna do with this tool? And then invariably what I do is I call someone to do it right. Well, that's kryptonite for you. Why am I doing that at all? It's because I have this idea that I'm a homeowner and I'm quote unquote the man of the house. I'm supposed to be able to do this stuff. And go, no. Everyone has that list. Your list, what's on your list of like kryptonite?
That's one of them. I can't wait for my wife to listen to this, because I'm like, okay, similar to you, I can do things, I can put things together, but like the more complicated it becomes, I'm going to screw it up. And I'd rather just get someone from the jump here. My wife gives me a hard time about it, but I'm just like, plus, I just don't want to do this. There's about a million other things I could be doing more productively than fixing some whatever faucet or sink.
Right. Well, so what I did a long time ago when I first bought a house and realized I struggled with that, but I didn't have the money to hire people. So I did it myself and did a lousy job. Eventually, I put a whiteboard, small, in the garage, and my spouse or my kids, I have 5 kids, if their faucet in the bedroom or in the bathroom closest to them was leaking, they would tell me. I didn't really want to know. They would just go write it on the whiteboard. And there was a retirement community, over 55, like the next community over. You can't put anything digitally. So I went over with like a 5x7 card and said, handyman needed. And so what I got was all these old guys with nothing to do who are naturally good at it. And I hired a guy, and when I first hired him, he was $9 an hour, and he didn't charge me for Home Depot because, quote, I like going there anyway. For him, that was a fun day for him to just go roam the hall. He'd come in once a month, work about 2 or 3 hours. He'd fix whatever was on that whiteboard list, and he would leave me a receipt from Home Depot and an invoice, and I would mail him a check. And I thought, what I did was I bought my Saturdays back, but our house functioned much better because I live in the Bay Area, so we've got constant seismic activity. Every 3 or 4 years, none of your doors shut without rubbing, just because you get settling all the time. It's just where we are. It doesn't mean your house is falling down. You have to adjust all the doors. You think I'm going to do that? No, no way. But they happen one at a time. So if the bedroom you're a kid, and your bedroom, every time you shut the door, you can't quite get it because it doesn't fit the frame anymore. He put upstairs bedroom on the left. The door doesn't fit, and these old guys, it would drive them crazy. So they'd bring the wood plane, and great, they take the door off. I'm not doing all that because I'll wreck it. You start to, once you figure out I wasn't put on earth to do some things, good, but I was put on earth. I'll make impact by using my genius talent. So the first thing is free yourself up from all that crap, and then reinvest it if you can in activities that are much higher purpose or value. And so I work with people a lot on that, especially CEOs, because
How do you distinguish then when I'm good at something versus I'm great at something, versus if I'm good and I worked harder, I could be great? How do you begin to distinguish between those?
so I'll work, you and I would work together and we'd say, where are you incompetent? I say, well, I suck at home repairs. Cool. So that goes on that list. Where are you competent? Which means in my book, it's 1 unit of reasonable effort creates 1 unit of equal value. So it's about a 1-for-1 ratio. Incompetent is 3 units of effort gets 1 unit of output. You go, that's a bad equation. Well, then you go from incompetent at the bottom, competent, excellent. And excellent is the trap. Excellent is often where we can get paid well or we can get reputation, but we don't get energy from it. So we use 1 input of effort and you get maybe 3 output, three units of output. That's a good deal, but you hate it. Oh, you can make a living doing it. Oh, that's a trap. And then above that is genius talent, which is 1 unit of input. You get multiple, more than 3, but the key is it gives you energy instead of takes any energy. So you could do it like, imagine something like podcasting. You could do a full day of podcasting at the end, say, I had the best day. I'm ready to go. Yeah, let's go out and celebrate. And excellent would be, but it's a grind. I do the podcasting, but I'm good at it. I get good reviews, but man, it exhausts me by the end of the day. Same thing with almost the same amount of talent. One gives you energy, and the other doesn't. And so you have to categorize those. And it's amazing how many things we do in life that we're either incompetent or competent. And so there's 2 rules on it. You can be incompetent if it's a parental thing, like it's part of being a parent. Nobody's coming to your house at 2 a.m. when your daughter's sick with a 102 fever. You're going to have to figure it out. And you have 0 competence medically or whatnot. You go, do I take her to the emergency room? Who do I, you figure that out as a parent. And you have to do that all the time. And the other is a hobby. So hobbies can give you energy and you can suck at them. So you can be completely incompetent at golf and say, you know what?
It's my example.
Yeah. You know what? It's really, for me, it's about being with my buddies and being outside. I'll shoot 90. I'm not great, but I'm good enough to play and I enjoy it. You don't ever have to get better because the purpose isn't about becoming a master. The purpose is about, it's a hobby. And so paint, people paint like oil paint or, cool. Are they going to be Picasso? No, they don't have to be, but that's what they love to do to relax. It gives them energy. You can be incompetent. So hobbies and parental things are the two places we make exceptions. Because as a parent, you're already there. I mean, I'm sure there's a list of a dozen things you've figured out how to do that you would have never guessed you have to as a parent. You go, if they had told me, it would have been nice to know. No, that's just part of the game.
With energy, I talk a lot about energy on my show and a lot of my guests.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your perception of energy and work and output. Do you believe if it's something that you love to do and you're good at it, that you really won't lose energy and you can work those, ridiculous hours that people in hustle culture talk about? Or do you think that there will always be a time where you need to take a step back, reset, and do other things that help recharge you as well?
It's an interesting question, especially in today's society, because people have hustle culture, which I totally get. I'm a super hard worker, but imagine that you're running a script in running your business that isn't your own, isn't naturally your own. Like it doesn't gel with your, I'll use the word genius talent. Now imagine a world where everything you do relies on your genius talent, which means it's giving you energy all day. The other piece is you're going to be so much better than the other version of you that's grinding or hustling that you'll work half as much. So you can either reinvest that and say, I can do twice as much because I'm so much better at it, or I can just work 30% less and have more of a life and still be ahead of the other model. I'm a big fan of that because like my wife has a business as well. If we both went hustle culture, we'd never see each other. Because hers is in medicine and mine is in coaching. I have clients all over the world and they're on different time zones. I could book my calendar from 6 a.m. till midnight based on where people are in the world if I wanted to. Not that interesting for me. So I play where I can, and every day I play in coaching, I am completely energized at the end of the day. And her medical practice was wearing her out. It took her 3 years, but she got out of it and went cash only, different specialty, and now her patients pay her cash and give her a big hug at the end. And she's going, this is what medicine should be. So I'm not a big fan of hustle culture for the sake of the merit badge that you get, because nobody gives a crap. They only reward you for the end result, or the either the result that you give me because I pay you, or the result that the world sees because you put out a product or a service. That's all you ever get. Nobody gives a crap that you're grinding it out at 16 hours a day, and especially your kids won't, and your spouse won't.
It's I look at hustle culture in a way that it's some people probably need a little bit more of that kick, like, hey, we need to go. I think there's other people out there that probably need to, turn the pressure cooker down a bit. But
Yeah.
I think the important thing that you just said was it's not a merit badge. At the end of the day, people only care about the results and the things that you kick out and the value that you provide. So if you're looking at it from your own lens, it's number one, like, be good at what you do, whatever the hours that takes. But like you said, make sure it's giving you energy.
Well, the piece with, and this is it's a disease I see in corporations. There are people that want to love their work. Here's what they get wrong. They put it on you, the employer, to make the work lovable. You're supposed to bring me work that is appealing, enriching, and gives me energy, and say, nope, doesn't work that way. I have to come to work and say, I'm going to love this. And what you'll do is you'll find the things that you love. And every role anyone has some downside to it. But if I come with the idea that I'm going to love the work, love the team, love the culture, love the everything, it's much easier to find because your eyes are open to it. And it's a victim mentality to say, I only stayed there 6 months because I didn't love the work. You go, it's not meant for it to be a popularity contest or a love fest. It's going to be challenging. Do you love challenges? Then go there. If you don't love that challenge, don't go there. It's your responsibility to love the work, or find something else. And it's amazing to me how many people in today's market feel victimized because they don't love their work. Go, yeah, that's not the company or the work. It's not the work's job. The work is inherently just the work. So you can love it or not.
Do you believe that there is a business to be started or an industry to be in that coincides with our genius talent?
Oh, absolutely. And it's the one that I've started 9 companies. I knew what my genius talent was, but I didn't apply it very well until maybe the 3rd or 4th company. And some of them I got into because it was a perfect fit for my genius talent. And the problem was I already had another business as well. And I thought, the way I look in the world, what could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong is they both need a full-time leader. And what I did several times was I had counter-cyclical businesses. When the economy's up, this one's good. And when the economy's up, this one's bad. Good, this one will be dormant. And then when they flip, I'll just, nope, what could possibly go wrong? The problem is when they're going like this, they both need me because one's going down and needs me because it's in crisis mode, and the other one's going up and it needs me in ramp-up mode. And I couldn't balance both for that 6 to 12 months. And then invariably I had to shut one down. Dumb. But now I only work in activities professionally that take full advantage of my genius talent. And people say, oh, so you're a coach. Specifically, I'm a CEO coach. And the difference is I get a lot of requests to come in and work with the middle managers or senior, they'll call them senior leaders. Cool. The problem is the model for a senior leader is very different than the model for a CEO. Here's a CEO. You're the chairman of the board. I have to deal with your expectation that we're going to hit 100 this year because that's what your financial model says. In my heart, I know if we kill it, we could hit 75. But I've got a promise or an expectation or a contract Well, then you go to your spouse. Okay, your spouse says, "Oh, Mr. CEO, you left Google at 450 and you went to take on this flyer with some equity, but you said we get a big paycheck at 5 years. We're at 4.5. How we doing?" And I know we're nowhere close, and it's even a coin toss whether or not we'll get a big check. Am I telling my spouse? So that's a different promise. So I've got two of them now. Then my C-suite says, well, we're understaffed. The team says we need this. Customers are saying this. Stakeholders are saying this. Investors are saying this. All of them are connected to the CEO. So you've got to balance 6 or 7 very distinct and conflicting or divergent agendas. I'm really good in situations like that, but I'm not very good where you need coaching because you don't like your boss and the 3 people that are reporting to you are underperforming. It's just not intricate, or it doesn't get my brain going. It's not that I'm trying not to help them, but part of me says, yeah, just get over it. In my head, I can't say that, but a CEO says, well, the problem is if I do this, then this guy's screwed. And I work really well when they've got what I call seemingly impossible challenges. Very, very good in those roles. I'm not very good in linear.
Is there a unique trait to these CEOs and super high achievers that you've noticed that when you notice it, you're like, this person's got it. They're going to figure it out regardless of what happens?
I don't think it's so much that. What I do notice is that if it relates to genius talent, oftentimes the thing that they're really good at, they were chastised or teased as a kid. So something I consider ADHD a superpower for CEOs, because you think about how often they have to shift focus just in one day. They've got to be on conference calls and negotiations and make decisions and sign off on things. And most people, they don't have the focus or attention for that. ADHD allows them to juggle 12 things in the air all day, every day, and long-term objectives. And they're actually wired that way. Well, no, I wouldn't wish ADHD on anyone. If they had the term when I was a kid, they would have drugged me because I was that way. Now it's helpful at some levels, and I have ways that I manage it because I don't need to be that. I don't need to be ADHD on steroids. That's for sure. But it's a weird thing, but it's kind of a superpower for CEOs. The one that I favor that's good for any CEO anywhere is discernment, which is an unusual word. We don't use it very much. It's a biblical word. But all it is decision making plus wisdom. And CEOs make decisions all the time, but oftentimes they have no wisdom. They have data, and that's different. Discernment is it's a super helpful universal skill for any CEO, because it means a higher percentage of the decisions you make are going to be successful. So if you can make decisions and have them be 75% successful, which is an insanely high number for a CEO, and I'm more closer to the median, I'm going to be north of 50, but probably not 60. Call it 55 or 57. How much? So you just scale that out and go, oh, Collins, and you go, wow, you're going to be incredibly more likely to succeed than me. And almost no one talks about it. People talk about
a little bit about the difference between data and wisdom. I think that's really important.
Yeah, so data is facts, and well, you see it online. People say, well, I researched this. You Googled it and found an article that suits your personality. So you rearranged your biases is what you did, and you're calling it research. You can do now versus what I might call a whole body yes. That is your either the hair on the back of your neck stands up, like you go, this is, or you're queasy. You go, that's your body telling you, no data at all. Your body telling you, this does not feel right to me. Nope, I'm not. It doesn't mean you don't do it, but you say, I need more information. They go, why? Here's all the data. You go, just the thought of that makes my stomach turn. The other one that we have language for it. I mean, you're an athlete, you had it too. And you say, My gut says they're gonna do this. And your gut often knows there's a source of wisdom there, and we call it a second brain now. Because you think of your gut, it's the only part of your body that doesn't need permission from your brain to act. So you're not feeling well, you puke violently, and there's nobody on the earth that says, I think it's time for me. I think what I should do is go puke. No, your second brain says, because it has its own nervous system, it pukes violently, either for your protection, usually for your protection. You have food poisoning or something like that. It doesn't need permission from your brain. You think, that's weird. But we have all kinds of language, and the mistakes we kick ourselves for the most are the ones where you say, I knew it. I knew it. My gut said this was a bad idea, and I got talked into it, or I talked myself. We have those. So if you go head, which is data, heart, which is, am I into this or not? Is this what I really want to do? And gut, which is the intuition. It's what I call a full body yes. That's discernment, or on the road to discernment, as opposed to saying, I got the McKinsey study. It's 50 pages. My team showed me all the statistics. They're just different, because one could justify a rational decision that in your heart of hearts and your gut. It's just, there's just something here that doesn't fit. We turn that part off. We tend to rely more on data than we do on discernment. And discernment is, every study ever done, they don't call it discernment, but they'll call it intuitive decision making. Fine. Discernment is ranks, it scales, and it works a much higher percentage of the time than does data driven stuff.
This actually applies a lot to player evaluation. Obviously, I played football, so football comes to mind for me most of the time.
Right.
When you talk with executives who are scouting players to draft, oftentimes the data or the analytics of a player, how fast they can run, how tall they are, all those numbers, you put them into a database and they project this perfectly rated athlete. And so many times you watch a guy and you're around a guy, you feel his energy, you see how he is as a leader, how he interacts with his teammates, with his training staff, with everybody in the building. And you're like, this guy, I don't care what he tests. I don't care. As long as he's like a baseline minimum, he's going to be in the league 10, 15 years. And yet you'll see they'll fall to the 5th round, 7th round, undrafted. And then they end up being one of those undrafted free agents that plays 10 years in the league, multiple time all pro. And people are like, oh, how could you miss?
How did they miss that? Yeah.
Yep. And the number one response I always get from people is, it's easier to justify missing on the guy who rates a 10 out of 10 on the athletic scale than the guy who you had a gut feeling about because he does everything the right way or he looks good on film but doesn't have the measurables.
Right.
Coaching CEOs, how do you manage that, I guess, concern of justifying a decision based on your gut?
Well, in the end, the CEO is responsible. So even if you're the head of marketing and you screw up everything, guess what? That's on me, because the language I would use is, who am I that I signed off on Colin's recommendation? It doesn't mean it's my decision, but if I didn't scrutinize it or at least ask questions, then it's on me. Well, it could have been that we both agreed that was the way to go and it was a screw up. Well, then it's just, okay, let's pivot and move on. But you could get me fired if this is more for head coaches or quarterbacks. You go, yeah, you lose your job if you go to your second read and throw an interception that's a pick six. Go, how could you possibly do that? Well, in the course of a 3-second or 4-second play, you have to make all those decisions in nanoseconds, and there's 4 or 5 options that you have to go through really, really quickly. Speed of processing is valuable, probably more than arm strength. Because you watch the guys with the physical tools, like a CEO with cognitive, I'll call it, or skills. But if they freeze, or the killer that I see is they wait too long. Now you want to take as much time as you have, if you have it. Like if there's no reason, if it's a closed bidding process there's no reason to be the first bid in, because you might learn something 10 days later, closer to the end of the bidding process, that changes your bid. So there's no reason to be the first one in, because they're not going to award the bid until 2 weeks, and you go, okay. But if you don't have the time, then wow, speed of processing, or even having a decision-making process, including in discernment. There's not enough time for us to make a reasonable decision here, so we're going to pass. Most people won't do that. They'll say, it's due by Tuesday. Can we do a credible proposal, or can we assess the risk? No, then we're going to pass on it, because that just puts us in no man's land, and we're likely to get killed. So those sort of things, how do you rate that from CEO to CEO? Some of them have that. You can teach discernment, or at least you can have a sidekick that keeps you honest, where I'd mentioned this idea of talk me out of it. So great, I am that guy a lot for my CEOs. They'll say, here's what we're thinking. I'm just not so sure. And I say, well, you okay if I talk you out of it? And then I'll a simple way is to say, okay, Colin, you're thinking of doing this, and it's going to pay off by year end. Cool. It's December 15th, 2025. You just got sued. Your company went under, and this was a colossal failure. What went wrong? And you'll know. You'll say, oh, that means that this didn't happen the way I thought, and I overestimated this, and the economy wasn't that. You go, well, aren't all those the things that you should do up front to investigate? And they don't. They fall in love with the idea and go, like I used to, what could possibly go wrong? 1,000 things. And if you even spend 10 minutes on it, you might have a different view of the decision you're going to make. And some CEOs just don't do that.
How do you find, in your own words, badass talent to help a CEO or to build an organization?
It starts and ends with a compelling commercial mission. I mentioned SpaceX earlier. That repels my kind and gentle term wussies, and it attracts badasses, because badasses say, wow, how are they going to farm on Mars? You don't know. Think of it this way. How many miracles have to be created for us for Elon to succeed on putting people on Mars? Because right now we don't know how to breathe there. So that's when I say miracle, it's something that is outside of the paradigms or constraints of science as we know it. So that miracle has to be there. Right now, it would take 2 years in one of his rockets to get there, and 2 years to get back. That's way too long. So you're going to have to invent teleporting. You're going to have to be able to say, okay, we can beam you up and you can be there in 3 minutes, and it doesn't hurt your biology. You go, no one's ever done that. Okay, we have to create our own food source that will. So you can just list these and say, wow, I get to work on that? That's a compelling commercial mission, as opposed to the opposite. You and I we both come out, you come out of Purdue, I come out of Caltech, and I'm worried about that. I say, I don't think that's for me. I go to NASA. Guess what I'll do at NASA for the first 5 years of my career? I'll be like a safety compliance engineer. I'll be the one that makes sure that everyone follows protocols when we shoot off a rocket once a year. And you're at SpaceX and you say, yeah, this is our third one this month. This is the third rocket we shot off. You're blowing, you're sending stuff in the air. You're on all over, and you're going, this is great. And guess what? You're going to fail miserably a lot, because when you try to figure out how to breathe on Mars, your first 10 attempts are going to be a colossal mess, and it's like a 1,000 or 1 million piece Lego set with no instructions and no picture. You go, that's how you're going to figure it out. You're going to have to figure it out by who knows what. And if you love that, you're going to come there because you're badass talent, and you will only attract the best and brightest. And then when you show up, everyone on either side of you is smarter than you are. You go, if you say, that's awesome. But if I walk in the first day and go, oh my God, I'll never make it, and I'll wet my pants, yeah, I'll quit after 90 days. That's how you get badass talent. Because badass talent only wants to be around badass talent. And that becomes the ironic thing, is that actually becomes your culture. Is that you come here if and only if You want to do the hardest, maybe not the hardest, the most challenging, interesting, problem solving on the planet. Yeah, come here. Your commercial mission has to be that way. And for some companies, that's really hard to do because they say, well, we market and sell project management software. How do you make that compelling and interesting? You say you're selling vanilla pudding to the vanilla pudding market? Yeah, who wants that? It's like, you don't even have chocolate, do you? No, we don't offer chocolate. It's vanilla only. You go, wow, why would I want to go there? Because it's safe. So you attract safe talent. You go, okay. Very, very different.
How do you deal with that failure piece that you alluded to? Because that impossible mission that SpaceX is talking about, dealing with that pressure of knowing we're trying to shoot for the impossible, we're going to fail every day, and to keep that energy to keep going every single day, knowing that you're attacking an impossible task.
It's a good question. I don't know that there's any specific way. I don't know who said it. It might have been Einstein. He said, the day before you succeed, everyone still calls you crazy, and then once you succeed, they call you a genius. So that a lot of it is that way. You say, how long will it take somebody? I'm assuming it could be Elon's team, but it could be Bezos's team. He's got Blue Origin or whatever it's called. Who's going to figure out how to breathe in an atmosphere with no oxygen? I don't know. And so you can, at least at this point, we say you can't do it. Colin and his team, they're crazy for even trying. You say, until you guys figure it out, and then they'll say, Colin and his team, what? They're amazing and they're geniuses. You either want to play in that level. You played at a super high level as an athlete, and you got to the NFL. Okay, until you're in the NFL, everybody says, I don't know, he's bouncing around, or he's doing that, and then you're in the NFL. And you go, what the hell? He's a starter. Yeah, he's a starter. Oh wow, he's an all-star. Wow, yeah, he's an all-star or all-pro in the NFL. Oh, he's a Hall of Famer. None of that seems reasonable until you do it, and then people say, oh yeah, of course he did that. We do that as humans. We say, oh, I knew he'd make it all the way, and you go, bullshit. You said there's no chance. Yeah, cool. Talent does that. People want to be around that sense of impossible. Talent and impossible go really nicely together.
Yeah, it's that, cliche of everyone tells you you're crazy, you can't do it for 5 years, and then you get there and you do it, and everyone's like, oh, I knew you were going to do it the whole time.
I was behind you the whole time.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, where was that when, I was sleepless for 3 nights grinding and doing everything on my own with nobody telling me I could do it. And now all of a sudden I achieve it and everyone's saying like, oh yes, it's, everyone's your fan when you make it, but no one's your fan when you're going through it.
Exactly. My favorite is Rory McIlroy. His dad, like at 19, his dad and his golf buddies I think he's from Northern Ireland, they put like $100,000 bet amongst them that he would win the U.S. Open by 25 or something like that. And he did it 2 years early, but nobody knew who he was. And the odds of winning the U.S. Open are insanely against everyone because it's one guy once a year. And there's people that really good golfers that play on the tour for 20 years and never even had a top 10. Well, he did it, and the odds of winning, it was like a 50 to 1. They won just an insane amount of money. Well, that's somebody who was with you the whole time. It was a bit of a lark, and they said, but imagine you're Rory and your dad's buddies, and when you go home, you go to the local golf club and see them all, and they say, hey, we're betting on you, we're behind you. Well, they really are. You think that's a boost of confidence that's different than, yeah, you're crazy, you'll never, in my head, the thought bubble is, you're crazy, you'll never make it, but have fun. That's what I'm thinking, but I'm saying, I'm behind you the whole way. No. I actually put my own money in, and they were rewarded handsomely for it. But I thought it was a great story because who has that level of, usually your parents are like that, but your parents are biased and insane because they're not looking really at what they should. They're saying, well, of course he is. He's the best guy I've ever seen. You go, maybe not. So, but other than that, who else? Your spouse? you hope that your spouse is that way, but we don't have very many people in life that are that way for us. It's great when you have those.
No, it's funny because, having lived my own, some of my own dreams out and continue to try and live more, I always try and have that perspective with people who I know are going through it and who are trying to do great things, because I know how awesome it is to have someone, you know, be in your corner and truly support you. So,
Yeah.
I always try and find those people who I think, are, badass talent, who I know are going to go through a lonely stage or going to go through, trials and tribulations, and try and be there for them, because I know how important that is.
Yeah. And it's such a boost, even if they can't help you, to know that they're sincere in offering. Because mostly they say good luck, which is not that different than F you. It's just a politer term. It's like, what they're saying is, don't bother me again with this. And you go, no, that's not so helpful. But it's socially acceptable. People do it. So it's like pretty funny.
Now, something I'm really interested in. You were kidnapped at gunpoint with your 1-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
So, you ever been to California?
I've been to California once for like 2 days.
Okay, good. Santa Cruz is Berkeley and Santa Cruz are the two places where literally hippies from the 70s, still run everything. And my wife at the time was a undergrad at the university. It was about 4 miles up into the hills, because we lived on the flats right at ocean level, and then the university's up a little bit. She was in the lab. She was as she called it, a lab rat, because she was a biology major. So she was doing whatever her experiments were. Every night or every other night, she needed to be in the lab until like 11. Then the lab closed at 11. Fine. My job was with our daughter, happy to take care of her. I was home, and I'd pick her up at I'd be up there by like 11:15. It was pouring rain this night. And right on Ocean Avenue, the main drag, is a little place called B&M Market. It's like a little convenience store, not a grocery store really, but not a 7-Eleven. Fine. We needed 3 or 4 things. I thought, I'll stop there, get that stuff, and then go up and get it. Well, I go in there, and there's this older lady, very sweet, like grandmotherly, who's like cooing with the baby, because I get the baby in there with me. We check out. I go to get it in my VW bus, my 69 VW bus. It was old, but the back was tricked out, and to get her into the front bench seat in her car seat, you have to do it from the passenger side. It's pouring rain, so I'm trying to do it quickly, get her in there, close the door, run around to the driver's side, put the key in the ignition, and there's this lady that was in the grocery store with a handgun pointed around my daughter right at me, and she says, "Start driving." I was like, okay then. Yeah, let's go for a drive. I've got a heavy navy pea coat, but I'm poor as all get out. First thing, she's got like a sundress on, and it's 50 and pouring rain. She said, "I'm freezing. Take off your jacket and give me your jacket." I'm going, she's got a handgun? I don't. She gets the jacket. So I give her my jacket. We stop. I didn't go very far. I gave her my jacket. And I'm in my head the whole time, I'm thinking, if my daughter's not there, because imagine your daughter's to your right, but she's facing forward in a car seat, you have to go around like this to grab this lady's wrist or gun. I'm thinking, if there's no car seat, I would just overwhelm her. I'd just grab her wrist. But I can't take that chance, because if the gun goes off, my daughter's right there. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm driving. We drove around for about 8 hours. I could tell she was nuts. What I couldn't tell was she dangerous. And I didn't know whether the gun was loaded. And I thought, do I ask her that? And I thought, it's not a good question to ask her. So I drove around till about 2:30 in the morning. I finally, we stopped at a closed gas station with the restrooms on the side where you need the key. And you could tell that the door was ajar, like it was open enough that you didn't need the key, and the place was closed. So she needed to pee. They don't even have payphones anymore, but they had a payphone. And I knew that if you dialed 911, probably from television, I knew that if you dialed 911, the call would tell the location of the phone booth. So I called, and what I should have said is, "I'm being attacked," and they would have sent a car right away. Instead, I start explaining to them what's going on, and they said, "Sir, it's a felony to do a crank call on 911 because they think I'm making this. And afterwards, I thought about it. I thought I should have just said, I'm being attacked at gunpoint. Come right now. And they would have. Well, she comes out of the thing, sees me. I had to hang up because she was worried that I was betraying her because she was afraid of the police. So I had to delay and stall. And the VW buses, when you put the key in, you had to hit the gas and the starter exactly, or it wouldn't start. Anyone that had one knew exactly how to do it. It became second nature. But I had to delay for time because no cops had shown up, and I wasn't sure they were going to. So I stalled the car for about a minute. She then thought, you've called the police and I'm in trouble. So she starts walking away, but she's got my Navy Pico. It's 3 in the morning. It's pouring rain. Sure enough, here come the cops. As soon as the cops get out, they say, "Oh, Janice, not again." They know this lady. She's an escapee from a mental hospital locally, and evidently she escapes a lot. Where she got the handgun, I have no idea. But then they put the cuffs on her, and I said, They said, "Do you want to press charges?" "No, I don't want to press charges. I just want to go home." They said, "But she's got my coat on." "Oh, you're gonna have to come down to the station. We'll have to process her, and that'll be part of the invit. You can pick it up in about an hour." And I was like, so I finally get home about 4:30 in the morning. There's no cell phones. This is far enough back. There's no cell phone. I walk in. My wife had walked home 4 miles in pouring rain. She was soaked, but you can imagine she's hysterical. Santa Cruz has got some hills. She assumed we had driven off the road and were dead somewhere in a ditch because when she got home, there's nothing. And I wasn't calling. I walk in, she said, and when she finally pulls herself together enough, she said, "Where the hell have you been?" And I said, "You'll never believe me. I was kidnapped at gunpoint." And she looked her in the eye and she said, "Even you couldn't make that up." And I said, "Yeah." And she was exhausted. We both had to go to work the next day. So she said, "Let's just go to bed." And the next day I told her the whole story. But yeah, it's a little odd to be kidnapped at gunpoint. And in the end, there were no bullets in the gun, but I couldn't take that chance. It was a real handgun. Where she got that, I don't know. But she was nuts. She was kind of like a harmless, nutty old lady, but she was in a mental hospital for a reason. And so, yeah, when she was in charge, I was like, "Yeah, I'm just your driver." We drove around all over the county. I don't know where we were going because she knew the roads. I didn't. I think she had been there for a while. And
is there anything you learned from that, or is that just a crazy story for you?
So the thing, it's funny because even in the moment, I could tell she was harmless, but physically she could do real damage because she was nuts. But she wasn't mean, and I thought I could, like when she came out of the bathroom. By that point, because now she's walking towards me, I could have gotten out and like held the door for her and then just chokehold her and whatnot. And I thought, you can still treat people kindly. I mean, like I wouldn't have been kind, but I could have been decent. I had a choice to be decent or to be violent, because you could make a case for the fact that she could have really, let's say the gun was loaded. She could have shot me. She could have shot my daughter. She could have done all kinds of things. I could understand, like if it were on social media today, people would say, "Oh, this guy killed a woman who kidnapped him. Man, he should go to jail for whatever." A little like the guy in New York City, Daniel Penny. He kind of go, "Okay, who's right, who's wrong?" And I could see the case being made for, did he really need to beat her into submission? Because physically I could have overpowered her. And once she was out in the open, walking back from the 50 yards from the gas station bathroom to my car, and I was sitting in the car waiting for her, I could have gotten out and probably wouldn't have had much trouble, because in the open, easy to overtake her. In the car, super risky because confined space, and she could shoot my daughter. So, but it dawned on me even while we were doing it, first how insane it was, like Twilight Zone, and then secondly, look, I have a choice here to be decent or to be. I never felt scared, but I was like, in my head, I'm going, this isn't really happening. You're just in total disbelief. But I never felt scared so much. The first 5 minutes, I was like, while I was kind of figuring it out, but it was pretty clear, because even because remember, I had dealt with her in the grocery store. So she was kind of like this harmless, like your grandma. It's like your grandma cooing on your daughter. It's like, yeah, okay. And I kind of encouraged it even. I was like, oh, sure. It's harmless, you think. And then until she gets in the car with a handgun. So it's like, oops, not so good.
Well, John, I can't thank you enough for coming on. If people want to reach out to you, they want to find you, if you have anything to promote, please tell us where we can find you and, what we can do to help support you.
Sure. I've written books, all kinds of stuff. Here's the great thing about having a controversial last name. And I can make a case for the fact that I have the world's worst surname in the history of humanity. I Google easily because nobody else wants it. So you can find all that. Just it's 2 T's, but it's pronounced the same, and it's just as ugly. And you go online, you can see anything that you're interested in. That's easier than listing it all. If you have show notes, I'm happy to share it all and put it in the show notes. So.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on. It means a lot, and really enjoyed our conversation today. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week. Check us out at athleticfortitude.com. Download the podcast, subscribe, go check out our YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.
Wait a minute. What about 5 stars only?
Oh, 5 stars only, baby.
I've
Thank
never
you,
been a
John.
quality compliance guy, but yeah, you forgot that one. That's
5 stars only, everybody. Thank you.